Thank you so much for listening, watching. Totally stoked to get some time with you. And of course, I want you to subscribe to this channel. And I want you to share this, particularly this series, because it's a really, really powerful series. We have great guests. We have great content. And the jokes, you're like, well, let's get over it. So here's your joke for today. What occurs once in a minute, twice in a moment, and never in 1,000 years? Once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? The letter M. You're like, ugh. Okay. Let's get on with our series called The Road to Wholeness. And this comes out of a book that Isabel, my daughter, and I have recently written called Road to Wholeness. And it speaks about trauma. You ever had trauma in your life? That's the answer for the human race is yes. And this book relates to the Good Samaritan, the parable that Jesus told about a guy walking from Jerusalem down to Jericho who gets beat up, his clothes were stripped, and he's left for half dead. He's a victim. He's traumatized. And I think for all of us, we talked last week about trauma and things that we have experienced that have been traumatic in our lives, and some of the ripples of that, and how we need to have that transformed and rather than transferred. But I want us to think about this parable just a little bit more, and we can read about it in Luke chapter 10. This is an interesting parable because it has 6 characters in it. And again, Jesus is answering a question. The reason he gives a parable is because he's answering a question from a Jewish lawyer who's wanting to justify himself. He says, who is my neighbor? And when Jesus answers that question, he tells this parable. And in this parable, there are 6 people. The first person we meet is the dude who's taking a trip. We can all relate to a guy walking down a road. Character number 2. As he's walking, a group of bandits jump him and beat him up, take his clothes, and leave him half dead. So the second character would be a bandit, a person who inflicted hurt and harm. The third character, it says a priest, came by, saw the victim, kept walking. So the priest, remember, Jesus is talking to a Jewish lawyer. So the Jewish lawyer is going to think the priest would be great. In our modern world, sometimes a priest could be considered equivalent to like a pastor. If we're not careful, sometimes pastors might have hurt us. You might be a pastor, and you might have seen someone hurt from trauma, but you kept walking. Then the fourth person is the Levite. And the Levite would be like somebody who worked in the temple. And so the Jewish lawyer is thinking that Jesus is telling a parable, well, that would be a good person too. So the 2 obvious heroes to the lawyer, the Jewish lawyer, would be the priest or the Levite. But they're not the heroes in the story. The hero in the story is a Samaritan. Now, this is where it gets really dicey. Because remember, Jesus is talking to a Jewish lawyer. He's answering his question. At this time in history, Samaritans were not heroes for the Jewish people. In fact, Samaritans were the anti-hero, the enemy, the villain, the horrible person, the yucky, reprobate, we want to keep our distance, the untouchables, the nasty, repulsive people. We hate them. They're yucky to us.
That's a little harsh, don't you think, Terry?
That's the hero in the story. And Jesus says the Samaritan comes to the victim. He binds up his wounds, the trauma. He pours in oil and wine. He lifts him on his own donkey, on his own beast of burden. He carries him away and takes him to an inn, pays for him to stay through the night and the next couple of days for the victim to recover. So the Samaritan goes above and beyond, way past what would be acceptable or customary. I mean, he goes way over the top. And remember, for the Jewish audience listening, this guy is not like, he would be, ugh. But there's a final person in this parable, and it's the innkeeper. Because the innkeeper looks after this victim after the Samaritan, after the hero leaves. There's 6 people in this parable. And I would propose to you that all of us at various times and seasons in our lives have been one of these 6. All of us have been a victim. All of us, on purpose or not, have hurt people. All of us have been repelled by seeing trauma in another person. All of us have walked on. All of us, hopefully, have been some kind of hero. And all of us have taken care of, have the handoff to look after somebody to help them to recover. And so in this parable, I think there's really great applications for us. And even more so, I would encourage you, grab your copy of Road to Wholeness, because in this book, Isabel, my daughter, she does the last part of the book, which is a modern allegory for the Good Samaritan. And in the first part, I break down all the Bible content, and it's got some really great application for you. So thank you for watching. Thank you for subscribing. Hit the notification bell right there, because we'll keep you posted when we put up new content. And thanks again. Catch you next week.